We're just gonna do it the way we usually do it. What's up, hybrids? Welcome back to another episode of the Fandom Hybrid Podcast. This is Hanko, and I am here with Anthony and Mike. And we are actually recording together. We are at Monsterama Con in Atlanta, which is a classic horror and fantasy genre convention. It's taking place this Halloween weekend, and we are here as panelists, and this is our live panel recording for Pet Semetery. We are going to be discussing the original 1989 version. We're going to talk about the reboot from 2019, and we are also going to discuss Pet Semetery Bloodlines, which is a sequel that premiered on Netflix 2 weeks ago, I believe.
Roughly, something like that.
Roughly 2 weeks ago. I am going to put this mic to the side because it's echoing and it's bothering me, and I think I can speak loud enough to be picked up on the video. So let's get into this. This is new for us. We don't generally get to record like this, so this is gonna be fun. But okay, let's get into it. I want to start talking about the original Pet Semetery from 1989, of course. If you are not familiar with Pet Semetery is a story written by Stephen King, and it was adapted into a feature film that came out in 1989. I hadn't watched Pet Semetery since it came out, up until a few days ago, and I will say, as far as a horror film holding up over 3 decades, it does its job. That movie is very, very weirdly creepy. And it's not necessarily the jump scares. There were a few in there for me, and I was like, I've seen this before, why am I jumping? But just the whole overall feel of the film is just so, it's disturbing.
Well, one of the things that helped it out was Stephen King wrote the screenplay. I did a panel last night about 1983. And that year you had 3 movies come out. Cujo, Christine, and Denzel. Oddly enough, those screenplays of his they're all like, nah, we're not gonna use those screenplays. But the movies were really popular.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's interesting that they let him do the screenplay for Pet Semetery.
Yeah.
And they went with it. So, and it was oddly creepy. Anytime you have a creepy kid, it changes the dynamic of the whole movie.
So let me tell you, I remember watching the film back in the 90s, probably when I was like early high school, maybe late middle school, early high school. And as I rewatched it a couple of days ago, I was like, I don't remember some of this stuff. Like, don't remember. And I think I may have blocked it out due to trauma, because when it got to certain parts, I remembered, and I was like, holy shit, I remember this creepy ass kid. And it was one of those things where it was like, okay, yes, I remember this part. I remember all the bad parts. The boring stuff in the beginning, the bad acting, I don't remember any of that. But I remember that I want to play with you.
I didn't think the bad acting was bad.
No, the acting was terrible. No, we're not doing that. Absolutely the fuck not. The acting was horrible. Dale Midkiff should give that check right back. And that's a waste of one of Fred Quinn's last movies. It's like, I think he died. He died soon, close sometime after that. Well, then he did whatchamacallit. But this is one of the last movies that the great Fred Gwynne did. The man that gave us that created the Munsters. The man that gave us one of the best heroes. Okay, I'm going on. But
he feels very passionately about this.
Here's the thing. This movie is like a textbook case of child neglect. The whole reason that we're going through this is because they didn't watch their son, and he walked out and got hit by a semi. And then this is a movie about people not reading the room or reading signs. They buried the cat. The cat came back evil. What makes you think burying your son's going to work any different? Seriously, I mean, if you bury the cat comes back evil, mad, and like hissing and shit. Why would you bury your child in it? Bring your child back.
Before we even get to that part, let's talk about some other things that are going on in this film, and they actually repeat this in the reboot from 2019. Now, full disclosure, Anthony has seen all three products. He has seen Pet Semetery, the reboot, and Pet Semetery, Bloodlines. I have seen the original film and the reboot. Mike has seen the original film and Bloodlines, which is the new one, the sequels, the prequel. So I will say the running theme throughout all of them, at least my knowledge, is that people who are scared to talk about death, they need therapy. Because I think that was the underlying main cause throughout the whole, it was the theme throughout all of the products. And it's interesting, we actually do another panel called Fandom Funerals Repass, and we talk about death and ways that we can discuss it and use fictional characters and their deaths to kind of, talk us through our grief or try to relate to it, because there are a lot of people who have issues discussing death in a healthy way. And we see that very plainly with the mom from the original, and then also in the reboot. Now, the interesting thing with the changes in those two films is when I watched the original, the issues that the mom, who again, I forgot that it was Denise Crosby.
I did too.
I completely forgot when I looked at it. I was like, huh? Okay. But anyway, the trauma that she has and the information that we get as far as what happens to her sister and how she was kind of partially responsible for her sister's death, the way that they approached that in the first film, it came so out of left field, and I was like, why is this even here? It didn't feel right. It didn't, I don't think it translated well on screen. The way that they did it in the second film, I think was a little more realistic, because it was part of a conversation that she had with her daughter, and the daughter bringing it up about how her, about, you feel sad about, your sister's death and blah, blah, blah. But it was just one of those things where I was like, these people are all having this horrible experience because they don't know how to deal with death.
Yeah, I think, well, for me, it wasn't bad, because I think what they were going for in the original was they were trying to ramp up the creepy part of the situation. Like, I don't know, I don't think they were going for realistic in the original, and I don't know if that's why I don't like the reboot at all. I mean, we'll talk about that later. But there are things about the original that I like, and we talked about this again yesterday with the 1983. After Pet Semetery, Stephen King adaptations is kind of tanked.
Yeah, they really did.
Because this is considered one of the better adaptations because he wrote the screenplay. The director, it was only her second feature as a director.
Okay.
So that may have been a part of some of those issues.
Like the bad acting and the over. Because even when she was telling the husband, I cannot remember his name right now. I can't remember any of the Creed family's names right now.
Lewis and Rachel.
Lewis and Rachel.
And Gage is the little.
Yes, and then Ellie. So when she was telling Lewis about her sister in the original, the way that she described it, and she was just so theatrical about it and over the top. And he's looking at her with this dumb expression like he has never heard this story before. And it's possible that he could have, because this was the part where she actually admitted that she kind of had a hand in her sister's death. So I can imagine if you're hearing that your wife may have, partially caused the death of her sister, who she was kind of glad died, I would probably be looking to like, what the hell did I just get myself into? But then you try to make her feel better by kissing her and tackling her on the bed. It just didn't make sense to me. And then in the reboot, like I said, that conversation came a little bit more natural, and then when she talks about how her sister died, you know, they completely changed it from the way it was in the original film, and I felt like, in a sense, it made more sense, if that can be said of anything that happens in these two movies. But yeah, it was just strange.
Yeah. I again, I think they were just trying to ramp up the creepiness.
Okay.
Because like the other change they made, instead of killing Gage, they killed Ellie in the reboot. But Gage, just like in the book, that whole situation was just odd. Like, of course, no, don't bury your child in the cemetery where they come back to life. But then again, we learned later that, well, when you watch Bloodlines,
Judd Crandall.
Judd Crandall is the main character. Like, he is like one of the main characters. He knows what's going to happen. He knows all of the bad things, and yet he does it. But I haven't.
Go ahead and say it. Go ahead and say it. You already had it out.
Gotta do it.
Go ahead and say it.
Say it.
Say it.
I'm sorry.
I have a theory.
Okay. Yes. Okay.
So, all right. Well, let's focus on the original. Well, of course, Judge should not have taken him back there and showed him, yeah, you want the cat to come back, the cat can come back. You know, and everything will be fine. No, it will not, and you know this.
Right.
And it makes you mad watching Bloodlines to know that he knew what was going to happen and he went along with it anyway.
Even in the first movie, he knew what was going to happen. He did it anyway.
So the Wendigo or whatever whispers to you. Have y'all read the book?
No.
I don't remember.
I vaguely remember, but the Wendigo whispers to you, and it's calling you because the Wendigo wants access into the world, and it wants to spread. And so maybe after all these years, it finally wore Judd down. It finally wore him down, and he was just like, okay, fine. Hey, you want this cat come back, show him how to do it, and then sure, you know, now he knows how to bring back his child. But Judd didn't say, don't do it. You know, you're going to create a double cat. Because the dog, he knew. I'm just sorry. He knew, and the only explanation is the Wendigo finally got to him. The Wendigo finally influenced him to do what he was supposed to do.
You actually see a little bit of that in the reboot, where, you know, they talk about the Wendigo, because they don't even mention the Wendigo in the first film.
No.
It just comes across as Judd is this really creepy, really shitty friend who knows that this cat is gonna come back evil, and then you wanna sit here and play this little blame game when Gage dies. I feel like I brought this on you because I shouldn't have shown you that place, and I know what you're thinking about doing, and you can't.
Well, it's too
Okay,
late.
so, yeah.
Because
You've
once-
already sown that seed.
I'm so slow on the uptick. Like, I didn't even realize that the guy in Bloodlines was actually Fred Gwynn's character. But when I realized it, I hated the original even more. I was like, it's just like you said, you've been through, you damn near got killed. You damn near died. Your friends died. Your wife, your girlfriend got carved up. And I'm like, how? Why? Like, that just made me hate the first one even more. I was like, oh God.
Yeah, we were trying to do the math on his age, and it didn't work out. But I figured maybe all the stress and over the years,
That's a hell of a lot of stress to go from looking like him to start looking like Herman Munster in like 30 years.
Yeah, he should have been like 40 something, maybe.
Yeah.
But he looked like he was 70.
But you know, when
Like,
you're
what
doing
is
some
it?
evil stuff, that may age you a little bit. Because I'm
Yes.
sorry, whatever good intentions you had,
And sit
You
on the front
knew
porch
better.
drinking beers and smoking cigarettes. Like,
right?
Yeah.
But you knew when you took him over the river, through the woods, and across the mountains, and all this other stuff, a partridge in a pear tree, to go to this burial, you knew what you were doing. You knew what you were doing.
Yeah.
I'm like Mike. It does make you kind of mad a little bit.
Kind of. I was pissed. I was like, because first of all, when you're looking at him, like when the cat dies, he has this little smirk on his face. And I was like, you're about to do something evil. I don't remember what it is. Because I couldn't remember how they got to the burial, the burial land. So I'm sitting here looking like, it almost was like he wanted this to happen. And then watching the reboot, when you hear about the Wendigo and they put that into the tale, I was like, oh, okay, that would make sense if they actually incorporated that part of the story into the original, because then it could be that he was being influenced by something evil and that's why he ended up doing what he did. That, okay, I can sit here, I can kind of reconcile that, but just, oh, you didn't want Ellie to be sad about losing her cat. Teach the damn girl about death and be done with it.
That's the motif, though. That's the motif.
That's the whole point about having pets. It's like they die quickly, so you get to teach kids about life and death. That's the whole point of having pets. That's one of the whole points. One of the whole good things about having pets is that you can teach your child about life and death without a family member dying.
Mm-hmm.
You can get them used to that, but still.
Especially if you teach
His best friend, he almost got killed by his best friend, who was buried in the damn pet cemetery, and he came back and it was like, oh, this isn't a good idea. Like, no, he was like, well, go ahead.
Judd Crandall he's a trash character.
He's a trash.
He's a trash character.
No.
And then, okay,
Again, the Wendigos influenced him.
Wendigo,
Just like
Wendigo.
he did
He is
in Bloodlines, the Wendigo influenced him. When you have a loss, it reaches out to you and it's like, oh, this person lost somebody. Well, they want that person back.
So the devil made him do it.
Yeah.
We're gonna talk about
We're going to talk
So-
about that tomorrow morning.
so then here's my question about that. You as a rational person, once the Wendigo stops whispering in your ear and your dead whatever is walking around, how the hell are you gonna explain that to people?
You don't.
You explain like David Duchovny did. He came back from the war, he got caught, and just leave it at that.
And for them, at that time, all the soldiers were coming back with problems.
Yeah.
And issues now, maybe they need to go get him some help or something. No, he's
Like how does something, he really wasn't dead. I don't know. He came back.
Because at first I was, spoilers, at first I was like, okay, did he come back in the box? Like, was he dead already? Then I started, oh no.
He killed himself.
He killed himself.
Mm-hmm.
And then you see him and he has a thing around his neck, he hung himself. And we went and buried him in the cemetery.
I have a question. Okay, in the first one, who was it talking to him when he was was that a Wendigo or just a ghost talking to them and trying to warn them not
That
to
was
go
the
to
ghost of Victor Pascal, the kid
Okay.
that died at the beginning.
Got you.
The one that looked like a 35-year-old college student.
Right. He was like,
That
you don't
was
really want to do
It was
this.
haunting him.
That was his ghost. Now, the other question I have as far as the reboot, the 2019 version, when Ellie does come back and she is in Judd's house, and she changes her face to look like his wife, and she was like, she basically was like, yeah, this is gonna be your punishment for what you did to your wife. Did he put his wife in the burial ground? Like, that was what I got from it. Because she was like, you're gonna pay for what you did to her. I saw her, she's down there suffering, and now you're gonna die so we can bring you back and you can suffer with us. I was like, wait, did he do this to his wife too?
Yeah. I wouldn't be surprised.
As dumb as he's acting, I wouldn't. Everybody in this town is just like.
Well, because when you look at this series as an aggregate, the whole point is everybody in the town knows what the Pet Cemetery does.
Mm-hmm.
They all know. They all know. David Duchovny knew that if he buried his son, he was going to come back and he was probably going to be mean.
Yeah, Pamber and all of them, the mayor, the sheriff, all of them would have
everybody
buried people
did.
in that
It's a small
cemetery.
town. Everybody did.
And they still.
And they will still bury people there. They will still bury them.
See,
Right.
this is what I was talking about
So-
yesterday with these unsympathetic characters. Like, you try to have sympathy for them at first, but then you're like, I give up.
So to answer your question is, Judd has had some time over the years. So if his wife died, I wouldn't be surprised if he did bury her there. She came back and was like, oh, that was a mistake and killed her. Because he was the last person left that was supposed to guard
So
the
even
cemetery.
then, why would you send this man to? Okay.
Because
So let's
Judd
not-
he had the Wendigo from him. Apparently the Wendigo got to him before, and it's got to him again. Remember, these are not the people that have come back. This is the Wendigo that has come back. So it is not Ellie. It is not Gage. They know this, but they can't help themselves.
I felt so sorry for Gage at the end of the movie. So in
How could you feel sorry?
Okay, because so in the first movie, you know, Gage is the one that actually is killed, and he's the one that comes back and starts killing everybody. Now, my whole thing was why does this 1.5-year-old baby know anything about evil that he wants to just kill everybody he loves? But again, if you're talking about an evil influence that they just completely glossed over, thanks Stephen King, then then okay, I can understand
I
that.
think
In
it was
this-
the director. I don't think it was.
Didn't you say he wrote the screenplay?
He wrote the screenplay, but he didn't direct the movie.
Okay.
But he didn't write anything in there to explain that that's not actually the actual person, but
But
it's a spirit possessing them, telling them because
we
they
don't have
actually
time for that. We gotta get to the creepy kid.
Well, I would say
And-
this
and
because
kill-
that movie
and-
was
and kill-
only an hour and a half
Yeah.
long. So
Yeah.
okay.
And
Now-
again, this was her second movie. The studio was probably like, you only have so much money, so much time, and Stephen King's probably over there like, this is not what my script, this is not how it's supposed to be. And they're like, no, but we don't have time to explain evil spirits. They did the same thing with Christine. In Christine, they don't really explain why the car is the way it is. But in the book and in the screenplay, it tells you that the car is possessed.
I'm about to pull one of your cards. I'm not about to give the writer that much credit because Stephen King is the one who wrote that coda for the Stand reboot.
That is true.
So we're not even gonna go there. But anyway, so what happens in the second in the reboot, Mike, that Ellie ends up being killed instead. Gage does run out into the street. Dad is able to save him, but the driver of the truck slams on brakes, trying to avoid hitting Gage. So his trailer jackknifes. So the trailer, the rig goes this way. The trailer goes this way. Ellie is in the street with Church because Church has come back. She thought Church ran away. So she gets hit and killed by the thing. So, of course, she comes back. She does her evil stuff. Now, at first when she comes back, she seems sweet. And then once she starts realizing what has happened to her, and her dad is lying to her about it, and he's lying to everybody else about it, then she starts, the evil starts coming out. Then Judd comes to the house and says, it's not too late to undo it. In her mind, she's like, oh, he's telling my dad to kill me. So she goes over, she kills Judd. Then she comes back to the house. Mom has come back, she kills Mom. And then what happens is when she's in the process of trying to kill her mom, she's trying to break into the room. Mom drops Gage down to Dad on the ground. Dad puts Gage in the car and locks him in the car so that he's not around all this stuff, and then all this stuff happens. He finds out that Judd is dead. He goes to the cemetery. Ellie kills him. Well, no, excuse me. Ellie tries to kill him. He's almost about to kill her, and then he gets stabbed through the heart from the back. His wife, who Ellie has taken to the burial ground, has resurrected. So at the end of the movie, you see like an aerial view similar to what they did in the first film. Now, they also started the movie out that way, but you see a house on fire, and then you see the Creed house. So at the beginning of the film, I'm like, well, whose house is that on fire? It didn't even occur to me that it was Judd's until the end, because I was like, okay, so how is Judd's house on fire? Judd is dead. The rest of them are dead. So basically what they did was the 3 Creeds that are still alive, they come down from the mountain, they set fire to Judd's house. And then the last scene is of them walking towards Gage in the car. And Gage is looking at all of them, and he's like, and then you see the dad come around to the side of the car, you hear the car alarm beep, and then the movie ends.
Oh my God.
Yeah, so I can't remember the book, and I'm getting all my movies confused. But the thing is, the Wendigo wants they want to kill everybody and bury them in the cemetery so it can come out.
Mhm.
Like it wants to spread. It's like
Mhm.
it's like a virus.
Mhm.
That's what it wants to do. So the assumption is they're going to do that to Gage. Kill Gage, bury Gage, and then come back. The reason why we don't see it on screen is the same reason why they switched it from Gage to Ellie. They just thought that in the original it was too much for the audience. For this toddler to be a murderer and well, creepy kid. Period.
I want to play with you,
Right.
Daddy.
It's better if she's a little bit. If the kid is a little bit older, it's a little bit more acceptable.
I don't even know if I want to say.
They don't want to show kids
Right.
kill brutally on screen like that.
But I think the other thing, at least the way I kind of read it, with them killing Ellie instead of killing Gage, you have a child who, one, is very self-aware about what's going on, and that makes, I feel like that makes what happens even more like critical, because she is aware that her dad brought her back because he loved her, but she's like, this isn't right, this doesn't feel right, I don't want to be here, you know, and okay, I don't want her to be, you know, it's just one of those things where it's like, it makes more, to me it made more sense, as much as any of this can make sense, because when you bring back a 2-year-old, and the first thing he does is goes to the room and pulls out Daddy's medical kit and pulls out a scalpel. Why? What sense does that make? And again, this is without the assumption of any kind of evil influence, because we haven't been told about any of this. You just, like, why is the ground sour? Y'all keep saying the ground is sour, but why? You don't tell us this, so we just automatically assume that a 2-year-old is gonna come back a homicidal maniac for no reason, to parents that clearly loved him, except for the fact that they just didn't fucking watch him. But again, this is in the 80s.
Mm-hmm.
Unfortunately, that kind of thing was very common. You know, you think your child is in the yard and you don't think anything of it, but if you know you live on a property where gas tankers consistently speed past your house.
It's like you hear them all the time throughout the movie, and it's like there should be a warning.
Excuse me. There should be a fucking fence. Why is there not a fence around that property?
Yes, you're right.
This is where I live. Like where I grew up, my house was about 100 yards, and then you have the driveway down to Highway 49. Semis going back and forth all the time. I've watched 2 of my dogs get hit by cars down there. Ask me why we don't have a fence. No one down there has a fence. No one on Highway 49 has a fence.
Because they watch their kids. Okay, for context, Child's Play came out in '89. It almost seems like, it came out in '88, a year before Pet Semetery. So it's like, it's almost like he was trying to cash in on the little short homicidal maniac thing.
The killer kid.
Not Steven Spielberg. Stephen King wasn't, but maybe the studio was.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Yeah, it's like, because I was telling Hanako, it's like the scene where he cuts what's his name's Achilles.
That's a cut down the sides. So
no, I can't. See, to this day, I can't dangle my feet over a bed without being like I keep thinking someone's gonna reach out and cut my Achilles.
Really? That's like
it's real. I can't do that shit. Like if I do it tomorrow, I'm like.
We're not here to therapy anybody.
How am I gonna tell of all those stuff I need to tell to a therapist? That's like at the bottom of the list. I can deal with everything else first. Like I'll deal with that later. That's fine.
Now the other thing about them making the switch from Gage to Ellie, like I said, in a sense, it kind of did make sense as well, because in the reboot you kind of see that Judd has I won't say special relationship with Ellie, but you can see he's kind of drawn to her. Like he kind of sort of does take on a little bit of that grandfatherly role. He did in the original as well. I think probably more so in the original than the reboot. But John Lithgow's version of that character, you can tell he's kind of he's kind of reserved, and then he kind of lets this family in. So it's interesting because if it had been Gage in this particular version of the story, I just don't think it would have, again, it wouldn't have made sense because one, Gage is not really close to that character. Why would he even care about going over there? Like in the original, that was the first place Gage went. And it's almost like, yeah, I'm gonna go over here and kill you because you are the whole reason that all of this is happening. But again, how would you know that? Because we don't have
They
any
don't explain
indication.
it.
Right.
That's why I like this conversation, because I did not like Bloodlines. But I realized that if you watch Bloodlines, it kind of helps you understand, like, if you go back to the original,
Mm-hmm.
you will see, okay, all the things that they left out,
Mm-hmm.
it makes sense. Like, Gage, it really wasn't Gage. And if you realize that Judd was the last guardian of what was happening,
Mhm.
then that would be the first person you would kill, because that would ensure, more of an opportunity later
Right.
for the Wendigo to do what it wants to do.
If he is the guardian, he needs to be fucking fired because the first thing you should
All
do
of them
as
need to be fired.
guardian
All of them are
is
trash.
not take your brand new neighbor and his dead cat to the burial ground.
Again, when you watch, God, I'm defending Bloodline. If you watch Bloodline, you understand that the influence of the Wendigo and the
And
Dead
I
Speak
understand that,
is so
but
powerful.
Bloodlines just came out a couple of weeks ago.
I know,
If
I
this
know.
con, if we had been having this discussion at Dragon Con, none of that
None
would
of-
have mattered.
none of-
We would have all been sitting there
Yeah, it's-
scratching our heads.
Having read the book, they left a lot. Like Stephen,
I gotta go back.
I know I'm sure, I haven't seen the screenplay, but I'm sure his screenplay got chopped up pretty good.
Yeah, and the artist not left to me that all the things that they included in Bloodline, when you see it, you'll understand.
Mhm.
It's like at the beginning there, they said that sometimes dead is better line, and then like a tanker truck just goes boom. Like in the beginning, I was like, oh, y'all starting early.
It
Like,
did
this
that in the
artist-
reboot too, and that shit scared me.
Yeah, it's scary.
Yeah, and it's like then they repeated the sometimes dead is better line at the end too. I'm like, okay, we get it. Like, but it's like. Oh my
So
God, but-
again, if sometimes dead is better, and Judd is known for saying this, why do you take it? Yeah,
Well, he
Again,
got
in
the
the
line from somebody. He got it from somebody
Yeah.
else, and the land being sour.
Yeah.
But in Bloodlines, didn't they say, like, I don't remember if this was a tag in the beginning about there's some things that have been around since
Yeah.
the very beginning.
Yeah, they did.
they said it in the reboot as
Yeah,
well.
and that's from the book that we can't really explain why the land is the way it is.
Mhm.
We just know that that's where it's like a portal for the Wendigos.
Now, in the reboot, they do kind of make this, they kind of put that suggestion out there when Lewis starts researching what's going on, because of course, Church comes back,
Mhm.
and they're sitting there looking at, like, how in the world is this cat just here? Speaking of which, I like the way that they did Church in the reboot better than they did in the first one, because in the first one, it's like, if I see a cat with bright yellow eyes like that all the time, like, he reminded me of, what's his name, was it, Tobey Maguire's character in Sin City?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what it reminded me of, and I was like, if you can't look at that cat and tell something about that cat is not fucking right,
Mhm.
then you deserve to die a horrible death.
Right.
But in the reboot, he looks like a normal cat, except for when he's angry, and then even when he's angry, like at the point where Lewis is about to euthanize him, he's sitting there angry, then all of a sudden he's meow. And I was like, what the fuck just happened? Like, the cat just basically put on an Oscar-winning performance.
Mhm.
Like, oh no, don't kill me, I'm
Okay,
young and innocent.
that's
And then
the
Ellie did
Wendigo.
the same thing.
That's the Wendigo.
But yeah, but in yeah.
Because it does it in Bloodlines. Oh, I missed you.
Yeah.
What happened to me? Oh, I'm so hurt. Can I get help?
Mm.
And then stab.
Yeah.
That was horrible to see Ellie do that to Judd, because I think in the original, like, you kind of get I think it's more suggested about Gage and what he does, because you don't see him kill his mommy. You just see her go in to hug him, and you hear the sound, and then of course you see her drop from the the attic, and she's already dead at this point, so you don't actually see it, and you don't really see it with Ellie either, but you do see her doing the stabbing thing, and I was just like, yeah, this is way more disturbing.
And then shout out to the little actor that played Gage getting a concussion and nobody helping him at the end of after his father injected the poison in him.
So
he
let me
just
tell you,
walk down the hall. He falls and he hits his head.
he stumbled down the hall.
Someone down the hall and hits his head, and you see him hit the head. I was like, is someone gonna check on him?
So
And the man
that
only stayed on him for
whole
like
scene-
10 seconds. I'm like, he has a concussion. You know he has a concussion. That poor baby is just laying there.
that whole scene was so comical to me, and I know it wasn't supposed to be because this man just had to put his child down, which shout out to Lewis for doing that, because
Yeah.
most people in those types of situations in a film,
Right.
that's how they always die. Because they're like, oh, I know I have to do this thing in order to blah, and then they can't do it. He actually did it. And I was like, I'm trying to look at it like, oh, he actually did what he was supposed to do. He killed this child so it wouldn't hurt anybody else. And then the kid says, no fair, no fair. And I just lost it because I was like, how am I supposed to look at this scene seriously when this kid is like, no fair, no fair. And then he starts stumbling down the hallway like a drunk person and hits his head, and he's just sitting there looking at him like, "Argh." I was like, I can't take this seriously.
I would give Lewis props if he hadn't gone and got his wife and buried her in the damn cemetery.
See, that
Then I was
is
like, that's it. I was like, okay, I'm proud of you. Wait, what the hell are you doing?
like, you didn't learn from the first one. He was like, oh, I waited too late with Gage. She just died.
Again, that's the influence of the Wendigo.
But we
He's
don't
always
know
had-
this in the first movie because they don't even talk about the Wendigo.
It's like,
So you're just looking at him like, this man is dumb as bricks. Like,
Yeah.
you are a physician, you are a doctor, and you have no common sense because you tried it with the cat. The cat came back pissed off at you, scratching you up. I'm surprised he didn't turn into something just from the scratches. Then you try this with your child. Your child comes back and he kills your neighbor, he kills your wife, and tries to kill you.
Mhm.
And then let's not even talk about the fact that this whole time Ellie is having dreams about everything happening, and they just leave us hanging. Just like they left Ellie hanging. No mama, no daddy, no brother, no neighbor. She's having all of these weird dreams. They never explain to us how it is that she knows exactly everything that's happening. Oh, put
She has the shine.
Yeah, you got that. Yeah, whatever. See, sometimes certain things, three times are not the third time is not the charm. You don't need. I mean, how many times you gotta try all that? It's just like, again, like you said, it's just like I wouldn't want him to be my doctor at all. It's like, well, you're gonna die. You know what? After you die, I'm gonna take care of you. No, just let me just leave me be. Just
Right.
leave me be. I'm good.
Well, in the original, he has a conscience. You know, he's got the student following him around. You know,
He has it in the reboot too, and he's still. I mean, it's not as drastic because I will say in the first one it was kind of overkill. It was kind of like the way I felt about Claire and her Lionel Brown vision in Outlander. I was like, okay, it's getting to be too much. Like, you're not helping. You're not helping the situation. Stop being vague. If you're trying to help this doctor, don't give him riddles. Tell him, do not go bury your son in this fucking cemetery. That's how you are helpful as a ghost.
Right.
That's how you are helpful. Don't give all of these vague things and then when
that's
she
what
gets...
ghosts do. Ghosts.
No.
You've been in a what do they call it? Every time someone does a not the ritual, a seance.
Yeah.
The ghosts are never specific. They're never actually going to tell you the truth. They'll give you some version of it or a riddle.
You know, I hate to tell you this, but seances are fake. So.
What?
This is a no.
Just
Stop.
saying.
No.
I'm just saying.
That's a whole other discussion that we're not having here. But okay, we got to go back to Judd's character real quick.
You know, I'm just gonna say, when you watch Bloodline, you will be like, oh my God, Judd is so terrible.
Judd is the worst.
And I mean, I don't have to see Bloodlines to know that he is
No, it
terrible.
makes it worse.
It really does.
It makes it
He is
worse.
so bad.
Because he is the one like, this is wrong. he's championing this whole thing, and even though you did ask a question the other day, I'm sorry, I got sidetracked because I thought about who goes into a root cellar when the house is on fire.
Thank you. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So
Yeah.
so his best friend sets the house on fire, and they're like, "Oh, this is a fire. Let's go down into the cellar." Do what? And wait the fire out. Who goes into a root cellar to wait a fire out? Absolutely I'm sorry. Pardon my French. Absolutely the fuck not. You will get out of that house right now. There's 3 of them and 1 of him outside. You have the numbers advantage. You can just get outside. If he shoots one of y'all, okay, fine. There's 2 more of us to take care of you. No, you don't go and wait a fire out in a cellar.
He says the words, "We're gonna wait the fire."
Yeah, he said we're gonna wait it out in the cellar.
It's not a tornado. It's a fire.
It's really
The
bad.
house is on fire. It is falling down
Around-
on top of you. And your floor is hardwood floors. So how is that going to work out for you in the root cellar?
It's like-
Unless there's something about root cellars that I don't know in Maine.
I don't know.
Root cellar equals death trap.
And they
No matter.
they didn't even know that there was a tunnel in there. That was
No, because he had been digging that tunnel.
But they didn't know
They
that.
didn't know that. Also, didn't he try to go out the door and he was out there? I don't know. I was
He's
just
supposed to set
thinking-
the fire out there, but it's 3 of them.
Yeah.
I'm
There
rushing
were
that
3
through.
of them.
I'm just saying. But okay,
Wait it out
on that
in the cellar.
token, who goes into a root cellar when the house is on fire? Who follows the old man through a pet cemetery, up this little wooded platform that you've already been told don't cross over there? And then you follow him through the woods, through some more woods, up a doggone a quarry. Like, who is doing all of this and you don't know where the fuck you're going and why? You just carrying around a bag with a dead cat, and he keeps saying, not much further now, not much further. Here, you know what? Wherever it is you're going, here, you take the cat, you go. I'm gonna sit down here and just wait. Because 1, who's doing that at night? 2, who's doing that period? I'm sitting here looking at this doctor follow him, and then even in the reboot, in the 2019, he's doing the same thing. And then in this one, you're going through water instead of climbing up. No, who is doing that? Why? And you don't know why you're going? Who
Just
blind
the worst.
in this day and age, in the 2000s, who is blindly following someone at night through some woods with a shovel, and you don't know where the fuck you're going?
Well, when you first get to the deadfall, you ask the question, why is this here, and why are we having to go through it? Like, it's here for a reason, right, dude? But Judd is the worst.
Yeah, he's the absolute worst. I think Bloodline was meant to prove it. It's like he went through all that stuff. He knew everything that was going on, but he just politely sat on the porch, took his father's place, lit up a cigarette, cracked the beer open, and just got ready to tell everybody wrong shit. Just like, yeah, sometimes dead is better, but if you want to bring him back, I can show you. Sometimes it's worse, sometimes it's better. Need to make up your mind.
Right, because at no time have you ever said that anything that came out of that was good. Never.
Never.
But you knew this, you tried it with your dog. Your dog came back rabid, for lack of a better word. So you already knew that this was gonna be a problem. And then you take this man and his cat so that he doesn't have to teach his child about death. You don't get the fuck out of here.
Well, see,
Really?
what makes it worse when you watch Bloodline is Tim's dog has come back, and you know when Judd saw the dog looked a mess. The dog was a mess, and he should have realized. He knew then, or not then, but later he should have reflected on. Oh, that dog came from the pet cemetery. Maybe we shouldn't. Well, not the pet cemetery, but
The bear-
the bear.
mhm.
Yeah. Judd is worse. Like, the dog attacked your girlfriend.
Yeah, tore her arm up.
Tore her arm up.
Okay, and that's the other
And
thing.
he
It's
still
like
came
they
back.
were headed out of town, and it's like it's like she was that the dog that hit the windshield, or was that a bird?
It was a bird that hit the windshield.
It's like they were going downtown. She was like, "Fuck this town!" And a bird hits the windshield, and they crash.
Yeah.
And then they see the dog. And it's like, cause they were literally, they showed the sign that said "Leaving Ludlow" right in front of them. And it's like their car hadn't even made it to the sign. And I was like, you know what?
Yeah, they were trying to leave. They were trying to
I was
go
like,
away and
I should
like
walk. Like I want to walk. Like I want to walk across that line if this is gonna happen. I mean, then you see the dog, and dog leads you back, and you see Timmy, and Tim is like gone. Like you're like, what the fuck? And then you don't.
Like it didn't bother him when he saw Tim, and then David the Covenant comes up, and then you turn back around and Tim's gone.
Right.
Where'd he go? We're out in the middle of the yard. He just disappeared. He's gone.
Yeah.
And I think part of that was they were trying to give, in Bloodlines, they were trying to give Lolo, well, that was my trivia question. They were trying to give the city or the town like they're trying to keep everybody there. Who knows? Because it was like 471 residents or something like that. I can't remember what the population was. It's not
something like that.
Yeah, it's not many people, so they don't want people to leave. No one leaves. That's the whole point. No one ever leaves Ludlow. No one ever leaves Ludlow.
I mean, Rachel got out, and she should have just stayed gone. Like, oh, you know what?
And what's his name got out too finally, even though he lost his sister.
Yeah. What was his name?
Start with him. Yeah.
He wouldn't say Manny, but it wasn't Manny. But yeah, he got out.
Yeah.
He was driving out.
Yeah.
Okay,
We
so
don't really know if he actually got out.
I'm hoping he did. Manny is Manny.
Manny.
I mean, I guess that's just like I was gonna say I could hope that at the end of the 2019 version that they didn't do anything engaged. They could have just let him run off on his own, but
No, the implication was they were gonna do it.
I know.
Yeah.
Just horrible. Okay, now with these three properties, the original, the reboot, and Bloodlines. Okay, so we already know the original one. Yes, I think it was good for its time because, like I said, it was very creepy. It was very scary. And watching it recently, I feel like that level of horror, it aged well because there were still times, even though I know this is a movie that is dated, and I know that there are things that they did back then that they probably wouldn't do now. I still jumped at the appropriate times. It did have that little level of creepiness, especially when you start talking about the situation with Zelda, Rachel's sister, and how that came about. Like, that whole thing was it was very appropriately creepy. I do feel like it lacked a lot though, because as you know, we've discovered with the reboot and then with Bloodlines, there's a large part of the storyline that's missing. And I think that kind of, you know, it kind of takes away from our objectivity when it comes to watching that first film, because we're just looking at it like Judd is, I'm looking at it as he's just evil as in an evil person.
Right.
So
He's a monster. Right.
He's a monster, yes. And I mean, and we do see that a lot with Stephen King's, you know, with his writings, monsters are not always monsters. Sometimes the people are the monsters, and we get that not just with Stephen King, but we get that a lot in horror. You know, when it deals with people, you know, people are the true monsters. What is the saying that Dean says in Supernatural? He was like, demons I get, people are crazy. You know, but
and sometimes, like we talked about it with Jurassic Park, about Hammond being the monster, because it wasn't for him and his, I don't want to say greed, but his his drive to have the park.
His pretentiousness,
and his thinking that they could control it and it'd be okay, right? Actually made him the monster. Because none of that would have happened if, like, why did you need a T-Rex? Why did you need raptors?
Right.
You didn't need all of that stuff.
Right.
And here, it seems like with Judd, you know, you didn't have to show him how to bring the cat back.
Because really, what did it accomplish? You wanted somebody to go through the same misery you went through? Like, what kind of friend is that?
Yeah.
Even, you know, and again, in that first movie, we don't know about the Wendigo.
Don't know about the Wendigo, you don't know about any of that stuff. it just
You
looks
just look
bad.
like a class A dick, like,
It's so bad.
Right.
like, but
Like, you
to
know the
avoid
cat
a
is going to
conversation.
try to kill him.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know.
And just to avoid having a conversation about death with a child, dude, have the conversation. Because now you gotta have a way worse conversation with this child because she's lost her father, her mother, and her brother. And she dreamt about all of this stuff. The years of therapy that Ellie is going to need. And I don't even know, like, I didn't watch Pet Semetery 2, the one that came out after, so I don't know if, like, do we ever find out what happens to her character? Like, what happens
I watched
after?
Pet Semetery too, but I don't remember it.
Okay, so probably wasn't
It wasn't memorable.
memorable. But, yeah.
I agree with you. The original one, if you just look at it as a straight up horror feature, it stands up as far as that goes. But if you want to try to pick it apart, and what messes it up is the reboot. Because people who didn't read the book and saw Pet Semetery like it.
Mhm.
But then if you see the reboot, then you're like, oh, wait, all that stuff was sort of kind of missing from the original. And like I said, Christine suffers from the same thing. A lot of people like Christine, but once you get into, well, you start asking questions, well, why is the car like that? That's when you start sort of having issues.
Right,
When you can't answer those questions
yeah.
as someone who just watched the movie. Like, oh, so the car was possessed and then it possessed him. Well, that's what happens in the book, but that's not what happens in the movie. The car is just an influence.
Okay.
And that's sort of what you have to do with Stephen King, because his stories are so layered and dense that it's difficult to get it all in there.
Yeah,
It's
especially like I said, the first movie was only like an hour and 27 minutes. And I think the reboot was like, that one was only an hour and
I would say
40.
It
wasn't that much more, so, do you think they should have done it as a TV show or as a series, the way that they've been doing, some of the other stuff?
No.
No.
I cannot do one of those at a time. No, absolutely not. No. I mean, the whole thing is just like, okay, one of the reasons why I'm not more of a fan of horror movies is because I'm too much of a fan of common sense. Like, don't do that. Like, you know what's gonna happen.
And no
Why are
one
you
has
doing
it in
that?
these films.
None. It's
None.
like, I mean, like, why would you go back 3 times to that cemetery and bury something when the first 2 times came out so bad? Thinking that, oh, it's a fresher body. No, that had nothing to do with why this went bad. It did bad because there's evil there, and it gets into whatever you bury. There's no idea if the body is fresh or not. I mean, that has nothing to do with it. Next thing he's gonna be like, well, I'm gonna bury Ellie while she's still alive. Maybe it'll work then. Like, it just doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
But in his rational, I guess irrational mind, it works for him. Like he had to dig Tim. He had to dig up Gage, right, to bury him in the cemetery. She literally died right there. So to him, it's like, yeah, I do this, and she's gonna come back quicker, not knowing that you're just bringing an evil spirit back.
Yeah, because again, we don't find out about that
We don't
in
know
the
about
first.
Should have listened to the ghost he walked through to get to bury his wife. Like, you shouldn't do this. Walks right through the ghost. Poof. No, she's fresher. No, that's nothing to do with it. No, just stop.
Yeah.
But I mean, I actually think that Judd showed him burying his cat because he wanted him. He knew he was dying. He was like, I need somebody to take my place. There's somebody who's going to actually believe this stuff and do right and do what I did. So I think that's why he showed him to bury. That's why he showed him how to bury the cat.
You think he was trying to make Lewis the next guardian?
Yeah.
And then, of course, Gage dies, and that kind of changes it because maybe Lewis would have been a protector of it and kept people away if Gage hadn't run in front of that truck, or if that tragedy hadn't happened, maybe he wouldn't have made the decisions that he made. But I mean, we're all parents, and we know, if something happens to our child, especially one so young, especially in a situation so tragic as the one that killed Gage, it's kind of like, we can say that we have common sense and we would never do something like that, but
Until it happens, you never know.
until it happens, like none of us have ever lost a child in that sense. We don't know what is, and not just lost a child, you witnessed that, you know? I can't even imagine like a bike hitting a child, much less an 18-wheeler that's coming, you know, just raging down the street. What it does to your mind, and then your survivor's guilt on top of that. Oh, I should have been watching him. Oh, this, oh, that, or maybe if I can't even, yeah.
Another big, well, I know we're getting short on time, but another big problem is a 2-year-old toddler versus a semi-truck. You should have been like a puddle of mass of.
Yeah, there should have been nothing to
There
bury.
shouldn't have been any.
Yeah,
to
but it should have been the same with Ellie as well,
Yeah.
with the way that accident happened. I mean, granted, yes, she got knocked over, but I will say this, they did a little bit better with Ellie, because you can see, one, she was a little bit put together, and you can see that when he opens up her coffin and she's nice and she's laid out. But the scene where she's in the tub and he's bathing all of the cemetery dirt off of her, you can see her face slowly starting to crack, like her eye starts drooping, her face starts swelling, you start seeing the veins. They did very good with that, because she looked like she wasn't supposed to be walking around. And it's like, even when she was in the bed, he was putting her to bed and she was talking to him, you could see like they did a very good job of focusing on her from an aerial perspective, and you could see her eye just kind of like this, like her eye looked like it wanted to bulge, but I don't think they wanted to show us that, but it's like you could see her face starting to break down, and it's like, dude, if you are not paying attention to what's in front of you right now, I understand your daughter is quote unquote alive and you have her, but you could tell he even knew that what he was doing was wrong.
He did. He wasn't in his right mind.
No.
So to answer your question truthfully, if they did it again, they would need to take all of those elements from Bloodlines that sort of explains it, and they would have to put it in that movie.
Yeah.
It's almost if now if they do it again, they don't have to do it, because they would just say you need to watch Bloodlines, and then you would understand it better.
Yeah.
And just add the whispering in the background, because in Bloodlines they're whispering.
They're doing it in the 2019 version as well.
Yeah.
I mean, it's literally
constant,
calling John.
Yeah.
John, come back to us.
Yeah.
Lois, don't do it. Or do it,
Do
or
it.
whatever,
Yeah.
yeah. So, okay. But yeah, so I guess we're in agreement. We don't need a series about this.
We don't need to see that.
Absolutely.
I think they've done enough with these.
Yes.
You've got an original, you've got a reboot, you've got a
That's
prequel.
We're
That
good.
should answer, we're good.
We're
They,
good.
they don't need to do a stand with
No,
this one, okay?
no.
Okay.
Do you have an opinion about it? No?
I have a trivia question.
Oh, you have a trivia question?
I do.
Okay, so we have a prize to give away. And, Mike. it's your
Okay,
turn.
so in Pet Semetery Bloodlines, Judson's father actually played a more prominent character in one of the most famous movies of all time. What character did he play in what movie?
X-Files.
Judd's character.
The
You
what?
said his father?
Judd's father.
Yeah, the Bloodlines.
The Bloodlines.
You can phone home for an answer if you need to.
I don't know
That was
because
a hint.
That was a big hint.
Phone home, BT.
That is correct.
That's correct. His father's name was Henry. His father was Henry Thomas, the guy who played Elliot in E.T.
Okay.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's gonna be
So
my
this
shout.
is yours.
Oh, cool.
Yay.
Thank you.
Okay, so do you guys have any final thoughts about any of the Pet Cemetery projects? Which one was your favorite? Let's put it like that. Let's end on that.
My favorite was the original.
Okay.
And I wonder if, because the book was in my brain, I filled in the gaps.
Okay.
But the creepy kids always do it for me. especially the murders. So, yeah, I think I like that one more, the reboot. And Bloodlines I just don't like. Bloodlines doesn't really add anything. It explains lore, but it doesn't really add anything to the story.
Okay.
And it makes Judd look like the most terrible person.
In the world,
In
okay.
the world.
What about you, Mike?
See, it's like picking two of the kids I hate. You know what?
I know it's not Bloodlines because you kept texting me, oh my God, this movie.
I feel like you were giving me revenge for making you talk about Howard the Duck. That's exactly how I feel.
Oh, wow, okay. So you're gonna say the original as well?
No,
then?
I'm gonna say Bloodlines just to spite him.
Okay.
Because both of them, I mean, at least the Bloodlines gave us a little bit more of exposition as far as why this was happening and what was taking over them, as opposed to them just being bad
Okay.
and people coming out. So
Okay.
Oh, because-
for the exposition, I'll give them a little bit, give it a little bit of
Yeah,
an edge.
because they give a flashback to when they came looking for the Ludlow expedition.
Right.
And they find an Indian sitting, well, a Native American, and he's chanting and wearing the mask, because remember, the animal mask.
Those masks were so fucking creepy.
So
They were so
he has a
creepy.
mask and to protect him from the Wendigo.
Okay,
And the expedition finds Ludlow, and Ludlow is acting all crazy because I guess apparently he got buried too. So none of the settlers were left to suffer.
oh, okay, okay.
And yeah, he attacked someone. I think Ludlow was leading the expedition, right? I can't remember if he was leading the recovery expedition or he was. No, it was Reverend Randall. It was Randall's. It was Judd's ancestor.
Yeah.
Okay.
Was leading the expedition, and all of the guardians were descendants of that first expedition.
Okay, so I guess I'm just gonna have to go ahead and find some time to watch that.
So yeah, so
Um,
they give a little bit of.
Okay.
Okay, so to answer the question, I'm gonna go the complete opposite of both of you. I'm gonna say that the reboot is actually my favorite, and I think it is because of the fact that they changed the death from Gage to Ellie, and I think it added a little bit more stakes to the whole story, because you have a character who is actually processing what has happened to her and is making her decisions based on that, and then also with the influence of the Wendigo. So I'm gonna go with that one. So
That's good.
That's fair.
okay, so that is going to be on our discussion of Pet Semetery. We will be at Monsterama tomorrow as well. We have a panel, religion and horror that is at 10 a.m. and we will be recording that, so that will be on our website. We will also be appearing at Conjuration in a few weeks. We will have information on that on our website. But for now, that's it for our show. You can find us online at www.fandomhybrid.com. We are on social media on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Threads, and everything else at Fandom Hybrid. You can watch our videos on our YouTube channel. You can chat with us on our Discord channel, and you can listen to us on all major podcast streaming platforms. Thanks for listening. We hope you join the conversation next time.
Thank you for coming in.
Thank you.